Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Run With Tobe Podcast. My name's Jared. Thanks for joining us again today. On this episode, we have another one of our roundtable sessions. This time we sit down with a group of the team members and we talk about company culture, what it's like to Tobe Agency, and what it's like in general at different places that they've worked. If you like what you're hearing, make sure you subscribe to hear the full episode. Also, don't forget to rate and tell a friend about the Run With Tobe podcast. We'll see you on the next one. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Run With Tobe podcast. My name's Jared. We are on Roundtable episode number 2. I didn't call it group therapy this time. I called it Roundtable.
There you go. And I
Group
found the
therapy.
this time.
And we are around a round table. So what's going on, guys?
Just hanging out.
All right.
That's it.
Lesson learned from episode 1. Jeremy, hold the mic closer to your face.
This.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Cool. So welcome back, everybody. It's been a month already since our last roundtable. We had different faces here last time, some of the same faces. So let's just go around the table and let everybody kind of introduce themselves. We'll start with Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy. I'm a HubSpot specialist, and I basically handle everything related to HubSpot for our clients.
Cool.
Jen, I'm the content manager and project lead for Tobe's clients and Tobe owns strategy accounts.
So I am the assistant creative director here. I'm Oz. I handle creative stuff, social media posts, video edits, photography, that kind of stuff.
We got our fearless leader back in the building.
My name is Andrew, and I am the janitor, the CEO, the content marketer,
The marketing guru.
the marketing guy. Yeah, a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And as you guys may or may not know, I'm Jared, creative director of Tobe Agency. We won't do this every time. This is just to make sure that everybody kind of gets an idea of who we are in the first couple episodes, which brings us to the first topic, or the big topic of today, company culture. So I'm just going to defer to Andrew for a few seconds here, because when we started, it was just a couple of dudes in an office trying to create culture, which was like, hey, dude, do you want to go to lunch and get fish tacos?
Yeah.
And that was pretty much the extent of our company culture, unless Tobe came in the office, then we had 3 dudes. But yeah, let's just kind of open up the wormhole here of company culture, because it is a very big thing in this day and age.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said like this day and age, because I don't think I'm that old.
No, but in reality, like company culture wasn't a thing that existed.
It was so
20 years ago.
It was so,
or if it did, it didn't. It was like the Bros Club.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll like talk about like when I was working in like a big company.
Yeah.
Right. And like it's just so different. Like even in this day and age where you have Uber, you have Upwork, you have Fiverr, you have like all these like freelance things, and people have a lot more choices with what they want to do now, or what they can do and where they can do it. I think that has had a huge effect on company culture.
Totally.
Like, the amount of people that I see working from home these days versus what I saw 10 years ago is crazy. But that's also a byproduct of technology and the internet and all that other stuff. But
you're competing against somebody's home kitchen and their family life, and
and that they can step out in the middle of the day to like pick up their dry cleaning or whatever, So I think like when I started thinking about company culture with this company, I was thinking a lot about my experience working at bigger companies and what they were doing to build culture. And I sort of realized like, what makes a great company culture is giving people flexibility.
Yep.
Right. And to be who they are, to do what they want to do. But the challenge of that is that how do you get that to all align on a single mission?
Right.
Right.
And get the work done.
Yeah. And so I think, to me, the easiest way to build company culture is just to hire self-aware people.
Yeah, that's...
and you can be who you want to be. You can work on what you want to do. But if you know like how you are and how that affects other people, like, and you're conscious and self-aware, like you'll pull back some of those parts of your personality sometimes. You know what I mean? And so I think in this day and age, like if you want to build a good company culture, you've got to hire self-aware people. Because I think if you want great people, they also want to have flexibility in their lives to do things outside of work too.
Yeah, that's a great starting point. I'd like to. So I came a little bit from a different background. I worked in a large company, but company culture was a very important thing because camaraderie often needs to be there when you're working late hours or you're working on crazy deadlines or, whatever the case may be. Like, you're relying on a pipeline of people, like almost like a factory where, like, if the person before me doesn't do their job, I can't do mine. And if I don't do mine, the person after me can't do theirs. So, like, company culture is a big thing. So a lot of like team events would always happen, like a lot of lunches and outings and things like that. And I know that everybody thinks company culture is like having a ball pit and a nap pod like they do in Google. But
the dunk tank, you got to have the dunk tank.
Yeah, it does go a little bit deeper than that. But I'm interested to hear the younger half of our agency, their outlook on what company culture is and from their different walks of life. So open up the floor. What do you guys think about company culture like now versus what you may have heard or experienced in the past?
I think for like in other jobs that I've worked for bigger companies, those positions that I worked in, they were like, I didn't have much responsibility, And I think when you have such a big company too, it's hard to create a culture when people are just going there because it's their job and it's not because they care about what they're doing, So I think for me, at least, like looking at it between working for big companies and small companies, I think small companies, it's a lot easier to like find a company that blends with your own values, your own look or outlook on culture and everything. And I think here specifically, I think, like as Andrew said, self-awareness is huge here, because if you don't understand like why you're doing the things you're doing, like what does that say about the work that you also put out,
Yep.
So I think self-awareness is a huge one. I think just being aware in general is a huge one.
Well, I think it's a lot of like knowing what you suck at, so you don't like. 'Cause in a small company, I think there's a tendency for people to wear a lot of hats, right? Like we all have to multitask. We don't compartmentalize ourselves into one job. Like your job isn't to come in every day and push this effing button like 40 million times. And sometimes a lot of big companies.
Oz is.
Why?
Well, when you have to edit, you're literally just hitting the scissor button like every.
Edit nowadays. I have a lot of
little bit,
work.
right? Hopefully you're thinking a little bit besides hitting the button 40 times.
Yeah,
But,
kind of. Yeah. Sometimes.
But no, I think it's important like to know like what you're not that good at.
Yeah.
Because
How do you do that when you're, and just playing devil advocate, how do you do that when you're inexperienced?
yeah, I think you first of all, you really need to ask questions.
Right.
And start to understand like, hey, I think you find the smart people out there, they don't just jump in and do it. They'll start asking questions first. So what about this? What about this? What about this angle? Can I do it this way? Can I do it that way? Why don't you do it this way?
Right.
And that typically shows me that someone is like digging in a little bit deeper and thinking about things a little bit deeper. And then more importantly, when you start to see things go like sideways, like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, at least admit
raise
it.
your hand,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Instead of like dropping the ball and then like, waiting for someone or something to suffer, So I think but to be frank, like that's not the life for everybody though.
Sure.
Right? Like some people just like to go in and press the same button over and over again. Your job is done at 5:00. Our job doesn't end at 5:00 here, right? Like it spells out over into after work hours sometimes. It spells out onto the weekends sometimes. So yeah, I think you got to know what you like and what you don't like, what you're good and what you're not good at. And if you end up hiring a bunch of people into your company who have no effing clue like what they're good at and what they like or don't like, it's
It
probably
spells a
a
problem.
recipe
Yeah.
for disaster.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of take a step back about like building company culture, obviously we make the joke it's really hard to build company culture when you're like three people in a room, just like you're so focused on all the tasks at hand and landing clients and just getting your name out there and things like that, the branding, whatever it is, it's hard to to make sure you take a moment to think, well, do we actually like what we're doing? Do we like working with the people that we're working with? And I think it started to me to show that it's actually building based on the hires that we're making. As we're hiring more people, as you guys are coming in and out of the office every day, you know, like,
and how quickly we get rid of people when they're not working out too.
Yeah,
which is also important.
Yeah, exactly. And not just firing, but just having that real conversation. Like, hey, you might not be the best fit for us. We may not be the best fit for you. And that's just the realization.
I have a question, actually. So at a marketing agency like ours, like we've got, actually there's kind of like three parts of the company if you think about it. There's like the internal operations piece of it. There's the marketing client side of it, and there's the creative like client side of it too, right? So I think creatives in general.
Uh-oh.
Do you like where I'm going with this? I think creatives in general have a different way of like looking at things and like thinking about things and feeling things. My wife is a total like creative, and we think on completely different wavelengths, you know, like what gets me nervous and anxious doesn't get her anxious, but what gets her nervous doesn't get me. You know what I mean? So, and you know, I think it's the whole left brain, like right brain thing, you know, but I mean, like Oz and Jared, like how do you guys like feel like fitting into an organization where, you know, maybe we're not leading with creative, like we lead with our operations and our business side, right? But like, how do you guys feel like adapted into a culture like that where maybe the creative side hasn't been fully like flushed out yet, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because actually sometimes I feel like Oz and I are just sitting in our own little bubble. And I'm sure these guys can attest for that because we're having our own little conversations on the side there.
Random stuff.
Yeah, just random stuff. Flexing whatever creative muscle we can. But we talk about that. Part of it is like, how can we keep ourselves, because the creative muscle is literally a muscle. You know, it's part of your brain and you got to flex it because it just like anything else, you can, you know, lose your touch. So I think that he and I, you know, we tried to discuss like, oh, maybe we'll go out on a weekend and shoot some stuff if we don't have anything lined up, or how can we get more creative with our own internal stuff to just keep those muscles always being generated and flowing. And for me, I think it's a little easier because I am fortunate enough to have a little bit of both sides of the brain. I can operate in the logical sense, maybe not as well as you and Jeremy, you know, when it comes to like some of the marketing automation type stuff. I can't think those cycles through, but I can at least understand them. And I can kind of chameleon my way in. And then on the other side, obviously the creative side, that's the stuff that really gets me going, but I can kind of straddle. But for someone like Oz, who I definitely think is way more on the 100% creative. How has it been
cut
for
his
you?
hair finally.
Yeah, he did cut his hair.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I mean, I did not have any other like office job experience before, so I'm just gonna compare it to like when I started and now. So when I started, it was more like I knew what I was gonna do. I was gonna come in, shoot the podcast, edit the podcast, and just publish the podcast. That was it. So I was just pressing the button all the time. But now, like you said, we have like a little bit more flexibility, you know, like we sometimes I don't have like specific things to do, so I can go like, oh, let's just create a demo reel for us. You know, we can just find some extra work for us. Like we can do some other creative stuff. Besides that, now I get into more like graphic design, web design stuff. So I do those things too. So there's just like always some creative stuff going around. And I don't know, like you guys said, it's a little bit more like flexible. So that's, I don't know, that feels like comfortable. That makes it like happy, you know, that makes the workplace more happier and stuff. So I
think a lot of companies that I've seen, like you see this kind of like evolution where everybody starts wearing like lots of hats.
Sure.
We're all like flexible, and then everyone starts to specialize, and then there's some level of unhappiness that comes with specialization, and then you kind of have to like pull it back a little bit. So it's just like never ending cycle. We'll go through periods where only working on this thing, and then new project.
Yeah, and that, I would say
like that. Sorry, when there was like project for 3 months, I just worked on the same thing. But like nowadays, I designed a website. I did some like photography work. I did some videography work, and then I did some like docs, Google Docs and stuff. So like it depends, like I said, just like a circle. Sometimes it's that, sometimes it's this. So
Keeping it fresh and
yeah,
new.
yeah, right.
So when the next time you dive in, you have more creative ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I look at it, because it's the same thing as like to me too.
Yeah, I at least when I mean, I know not everybody can kind of straddle both sides. So I think going back to the self-awareness part of the culture is this guy's really self-aware, and actually everybody in our company is really self-aware to the point where they're at least willing to say, you know what, I've never done that. Let me try it. And then instantly, most of them will let us know that, like, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work out. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to lose.
That's
I'm going to
fine.
lose. Like, let's move
That's
on.
fine. Yeah, that's
And it's
totally
cool.
fine.
Like,
Yeah.
we're not, like, especially for me, like, I'm not going to be mad. I'll
Yeah.
be more mad if you don't try.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that like building a good culture is like, it's okay to fuck up and make
It's totally
mistakes.
okay.
And just raise your hand as soon as you make it and
Yeah.
be like, hey, I need some help like getting out of this. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So-
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because
Like,
if it works, I'm sorry. Yeah, if it works, it's perfect. You know,
Yeah.
then you can get like more responsibilities, right?
yeah, because in other jobs I've had, like you don't even get, or I didn't even really get the freedom or the choice to really try to see if I could do other things. You
Right.
know, it's more like just do this. This is all we need you to do, pretty much, right?
Press that button.
It's also a sense of self-achievement that you know you can accomplish, and you're surprised that, oh my God, I can actually do this. And I'm happy that the company actually is willing to let me try.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was
Yeah,
that was
so-
great for me. Like I started to do graphic design. I was like, I'm stuck at graphic design. I cannot do it. And now I'm just doing it. And yeah,
Yeah, and as we talk about culture, it's like we can. The flip side to it as a business owner is like you're putting in potentially inexperienced people on projects, right? But I think we get around that in two ways. Is one, we always have you guys guinea pig everything on Tobe Agency
Right.
ourselves. Like everything that you're learning, you always try it out on us. And to the extent where you don't do that, like Jared and I spend extra cycles to make sure that we're holding your hand and to doing that. So it's like we can't just. I think you always got to set people up for success when you're asking them to try something that's out of their comfort zone. And part of that is like spending time with the person to explain the job and explain the role and to help like make sure that like, you know, you're not like you can throw them in the water, but maybe throw them a life vest too. You know
We'll
what
put
I
you in
mean?
with some water wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, at least when we started, one of the thoughts, you know, because it's like, it's not always just going to be us at some point, right? And one of the thoughts I always had, and one of the fulfillments that I have every day is coming in and knowing that there might be some knowledge that I've learned along my path in life or work or whatever that I can pass down to anybody. And I actually enjoy, I'm not a teacher, but I enjoy like teaching and showing you guys, you know, some of that. And the payback is when you guys actually teach me, which I've learned a ton from you guys, you know, and to me that's the ultimate payback. So I actually enjoy that part of kind of, you know, holding your hand and, you know, maybe taking you out to dinner. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a mutual thing.
Wait a
Yeah,
second.
but I really do enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like I don't know if it's an indirect byproduct of the culture that you guys have built, but it is like we're all willing to give a little bit more because
Right.
we know that it's coming back
Right.
too, you know, like we can all like look out for each other in whatever ways that we can, whether it's like if I need an image created real quick or something, then I can go to you guys, but if you guys need copy written or anything like
Don't
that,
say you. Don't say us. Come on.
yeah, mostly
Just say
us.
us. Yeah.
By the way, I need that like now.
He's like, he comes to me. He's like, oh, like how can I do this? I'm like, just come on. I know what you mean. Just give it to me.
Very strategic.
But only after I've tried it once and
Yeah.
like realized that I suck.
I think another aspect of culture that we should also acknowledge with our company is the fact that we've got a really international like group
We
of
do.
people. You know, Jen like is from Taiwan originally. Oz is from Turkey. Like, we've lived in different parts. All of us have lived in different parts of the country.
We have an employee in Canada.
We have an employee in Canada as well. Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's funny because like even even for some of our employees who are like on the East Coast or in the middle of the country or wherever, like you just feel that cultural difference
Yeah,
a
totally.
little bit.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's good. Like I think we all respect it. And I've always kind of like, because I went to school on the East Coast, I had my first job out there. I've always seen like East Coast folks as being like very suit and tie, like a little bit more buttoned up, like in that aspect, you know? And then the West Coast folks are just like total, like more creative.
Yeah.
They're like
Chill.
Explorers, man. Explorers.
It's the like the stereotype, like everyone in California is like a surfer or is an airhead or goes to the beach or whatever. But it's because it's always effing sunny here. And
Yeah.
like, you know?
It's so funny. When I first moved to LA, my cousin had lived here 10 plus years before I moved here. And the first thing I asked him, he was like, hey, come out, meet me for dinner or whatever. And I'm like, what do I wear? He's like, dude, it's LA. You wear whatever you want. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I came in like a button down shirt and like nice shoes and like nice jeans. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought I was in LA. Like I can wear whatever. He's like, no, that's not how it is
Yeah,
here.
it's funny.
Yeah, like the
Flip flops and shorts.
Yeah.
yeah, like when we first moved, or when I first moved here from Virginia, and I was going to school up in Santa Barbara, and like literally the first thing I noticed was, or like the first thing I asked myself at school was like, why does everybody walk so slow?
Yeah, the life is so slow.
Yeah,
here,
like literally, I was just like,
It's not island time. Let's not mix
Yeah,
that up.
that's true. Yeah, it's I don't know, like
Coastal.
that's coastal time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you look at people spread out like that, and you can start to identify, like if I have a client on the East Coast, like I'll probably need to wear a collared shirt. You know what I mean? We need to be like a little bit more buttoned up. And I think recognizing that, like those cultural differences and where people come from, right, is super important. You know? And
totally.
In a day and age where we actually don't see each other, here in the LA office is a little bit different, but we do a lot of Zoom calls. Like understanding those differences when you can't pick up on physical like body cues and language, you know what I mean? Like as if you're in person with someone is really important. So I think that's another thing that I'm like cognizant of when in building the culture of our company is I want us to be international, you know, and I do think that having like diversity of, like, it sounds really cliche, but like, the whole diversity of ideas, people coming from different backgrounds actually does produce like a better product.
I think it does. Yeah. I mean, on the creative side, it definitely does, because we all have seen different things. And if everybody's seeing the same thing, then, you're just going to get the same thing again. So,
and like recently, like Jen, like we have a client now who we're helping them like build their digital marketing business in the US, but they also have significant distribution in mainland China and Hong Kong and Taiwan. And he actually, like Jen was talking about her background with this client, and he actually reached out to me right after and was like, like we need someone, because we just hired an agency, a marketing agency in China to help us, do our marketing there. But we need someone who understands like how things are done there, and things. I mean, Jen knows this, but culture in China, the way you do business is so different. I was about to say weird, but that would be a culturally insensitive thing to say. But the same thing when you go to Japan, like for example, like you never ask questions where you put them in a position where they have to say no. You give them a way to say no without saying no. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
that's interesting.
It's weird, right? It's weird.
So,
it's different, just different, right? But again, like recognizing those types of things, I think is important, because if you hire someone who comes in from that background,
you may not. You got to be sensitive to it.
Not to say that you've got to like completely cater your personality to it, but you should have some respect.
Yeah, respect.
And like, hey, there's some certain things that might trigger some people that don't trigger us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a good culture, again, is that self-awareness,
right?
Like saying like, hey, I'm like this. It could make Jen feel like a little bit weird if I say this or do this way. You know what I mean? So don't do it.
Right.
And I think then when you start talking about that with each other, like we are now, like that actually builds a whole nother level of culture
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and it's
know?
like levels of trust
Yeah.
at some point,
Yeah.
right?
Opening up to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
I
be
actually
adapting.
there's a book that I just finished reading. It's called like the 10 like traits of like grateful leadership or something like that. And I think that's the other aspect of a good culture too, is that you're just grateful for each other.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that, like, you know,
absolutely.
there's times where, you know, I needed something from you guys,
Yep.
like at the last minute, and like you guys got other things on your plate, and like you guys will step up to help, you know. And I think you guys, and you don't do that because you know it's going to be reciprocated on.
Right.
You do it because you just want to help.
Yeah,
you know
and
what
we
I mean?
give I think everybody generally just gives a shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We care.
Without
Yeah.
a better way to put it, like
Yeah, we
everybody
care.
cares. Everybody really cares about what the product
Yeah,
that
and
we put
that's-
out together.
And actually, I just like, you guys probably don't know this yet, but one of the questions in our performance reviews is like, you know, what are some things that you guys are grateful for, like for working here? And that's something that I want to know, you know, because I think you guys thinking about that and reflecting on that is an important part of our culture. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really awkward segue. No, I'm just kidding. But okay, so continuing on culture, because I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but you kind of touched on this in the opening statement, where there's all these options for people to have this different work-life balance, right? Where it's so funny because let's go way back in time, where it used to be like your only work was like, I have to build this hut, I have to go hunt food, and then I'm going to spend time with my family.
Oh, that way back.
Yeah.
I didn't think
Oh,
that
yeah,
way
I
back.
didn't
That's like
expect
Stone Age way back.
Let me grab my spear from the closet.
Exactly.
Right now.
At some point, you know, as we evolved as humans, we came into this thing called money, currency, whatever it will be. And things start changing, right? You're like, oh, well, now I'm going to keep working more because I need to make
Buy
more
new
money,
camera gear.
or you know, whatever it is. So the work-life balance at some point the scale tipped to the other direction. But now it feels, at least, and I can't say this across the world, but at least in America, it feels very much like it's starting to go back to like, oh, and especially with like things like mental health, all the studies that have been done and all the awareness now, like working all the time is not great. And especially if you're working all the time and it's somewhere you don't want to be. So let's talk about work-life balance and how important it is for you to like actually care about the people and the thing you're doing. Because I mean, you can go make $1 gazillion, but that
I'm
doesn't
not going to
always-
start out talking about this because I'm the wrong person to talk about this. So I'll let you guys.
Oh well,
talk
I
about
think
it.
I mean, both of us are probably the wrong people to talk about that. But
Well, let me ask you guys, like what is work-life balance to you guys? What does it actually mean to you guys?
Work. So basically, if I can make money to live just like okay, then I don't need to work more. Like just be minimalistic. You know, if you can buy food, accommodation, and just like basic needs, you don't have to go.
you're the
for
1%,
it.
man.
I know you don't have
Just
to
to
go
survive.
for it all the time. Like the last podcast, you said
Yeah.
something about people now prefer being poor by the beach in Thailand.
Oh, yeah.
Than like being rich in Los Angeles in miserable life. You know, so I prefer that. I guess that's like the
All right.
word. Oh, mine is a little bit more extreme.
Oh, so
maybe,
we-
maybe
so
a
we
little
get
bit more
to-
extreme on the other
We
side.
get to lower your pay a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
you just gave yourself a pay cut.
Yeah, maybe that's a little bit extreme, but
Because you're
still-
happy now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. But if you lower it, I'm not gonna be happy. So,
Yeah,
I
I
guess
think
that's still,
yeah,
like,
it's
you
funny. I think I always go back to this thing I've read, like I think it was years ago, but you're happiest making $80,000 a year or something like that. Like there's like diminishing like marginal utility as you start making more, and it's the whole
And the
more money
taxes go up.
dude, more money, more problems.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
totally,
that's-
totally.
Dude, Biggie was right, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read something like when you make 72,000, that's the peak. After the 72,000, it's just like, let's say you make million, like between 72,000 to million, there's not much difference, but as much as difference between like 72 to 60. You know,
Yeah.
It's just when you have more money, you don't get more happier.
So I was sitting with
I don't know, dude.
I won't.
I'm not the enemy of money or something like that. By the way, I sound like I hate money. It's not. It's just I don't know.
I was sitting with, I actually won't name who they are, but we were having this discussion, and these are folks that gross like, you know, $500,000 to like $1 million a year, and they're like, that is the worst place to ever be in. If you make like less than like 1.5 million, but you make more than like 500,000 because you get taxed like
crazy
up the ass, and you're dealing with problems that someone who's making $1 million would be, you know what I mean? Is it really worth it? You know? And I was like listening. I'm like, are you guys fucking serious? Like. And then you start to realize, to your point, that look at the house they live in, look at the cars they drive, like look at the vacations they have to go on. You know what I mean?
They have to go on.
Yeah, right.
They have to.
But it's part of their life. It's normal.
Otherwise, you're gonna burn out. And
right. No. But he's talking about like the style of vacation.
Yeah,
not just going
It's like we have to stay at the Four Seasons.
You're expected to like live a certain way at that point.
But no, you're right, man. Like I think if you can. And for me personally, like I've tried to like be a little more minimal, like just it simplifies things, And I mean, what about you guys? Like, how do you guys look at work-life balance?
I mean, if it's not on the topic of money or how much you make, like to me, I feel like if you can get rewarded in a different way, like just a pat on the shoulder or just a word of praise, like to me, I wouldn't mind working extra more, just because I care for the business and because I care for the project. And I don't know, like to balance, it's kind of like part of my life instead of just work or life. It's like work and life together.
Yep.
Like to me, that is a fun thing. So I wouldn't think of it as, do I want to balance it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's cool. So you find
cool.
you like what you're doing. That's good.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeremy?
I mean, I agree with both of them. I think, I think work-life balance for me is like figuring out how am I going to use these 24 hours that I have each day, so that for one thing, I'm happy, I'm doing the things that I want to do. And then, but also I'm being productive, I'm working a job full time and taking care of all my responsibilities in that job,
and pay bills.
So I think it's hard to kind of just, bucket things into just work or life, because
I think it becomes a lot easier when you don't like what you're doing than you're like, work is work, life is life.
Exactly. Yep. And I think now people have a lot more choices, going back to what we were first talking about a lot of people working from home. It's like there's so many options out there now. And if you have a skill, it's not hard to find work, and even if you don't have a skill, it's not hard to learn now either. So
that's true.
I think the ideal work-life balance is just found in loving what you do,
Yeah.
And I think I've only started to kind of realize that, or like realize that you can love work, like as I've gotten older, and after I've done things that I know now that I don't want to do, Yeah. So
just more experience.
Yeah.
I just realized that like I have like all my money or all I have is disposable, so I talk like that, like I can just go live there. But when you have a family or you're older, when you're married, that's a little different, I guess.
But I don't think about it that much differently than you do. Obviously, when you're coming out of school or whatever, guns blazing, you're like, man, I just want to make money and like I just want to like buy kicks and cool shit and whatever, like gear.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, I just didn't want to say it twice.
But now I look at it similar to you. Like if I can make enough to support the system that I've got going at home, money wise, then that's all I need. I left a really good like paying job on the table because I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. Like I really was starting to get to that point where like this is black and white, this is black and white. Like work is work, life is life. When they spill over to each other, I didn't like it. And now I don't really care what, I can get up at 2:00 in the morning and start, Slack messaging all of you to see if you're like,
which you do.
Yeah. Or work, or working on a project. Like if I have like the urge to like want to work on a project or our website or whatever it is, I know that I'm enjoying it. I'm not getting up because I have to. I'm getting up because I really want to. Yeah. And even the pain in the ass stuff, like there's some client stuff that can be a real pain in the butt.
Websites.
websites or whatever. But I never get mad at it to where I'm like, I don't like this. I'm aggravated that the problem's happening. How can we fix this in the future? That kind of aggravation, not like, oh, I have to deal with this person again. It's never like that, which is,
Shit, I think I have a problem now then.
but yeah, I don't know, like work life, like you're saying, I think Jen said it really well. Like you can't think about it. If you love what you're doing, it never
It becomes your life.
it becomes one.
Yeah.
It becomes
Sometimes
one.
like even we don't have to work, like we go out and shoot some stuff for us,
Yeah.
like for our reel or for for the agency's portfolio or something like that. So like you said, it's just like when you like it, it's not like, oh, I have to do this and then the rest of it is just marketing and stuff.
It does help having control of it. I'm not gonna
I know,
lie.
like, yeah, when you're gonna burn out if you do it like a lot.
but it helps having control of it, as in like I'm not like I don't have somebody else above me to control it.
Yeah, that's actually the main reason why I just stopped working for other people,
Yeah.
because everyone I worked for was an idiot.
Yeah,
And
or
I
an
didn't.
asshole. Or
Yeah, I mean, like they might be smart, but an asshole, and like, I guess there's two things. It's like, first of all, I'm working my ass off to put money in somebody else's pocket, right? Who may not value like what I'm doing, right? And then number two is, like, I didn't get into this business to like make tons of money.
Right.
Like I could make tons of money from doing something else.
Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Trading
Not this week,
Bitcoin.
last week.
Yeah,
Not this
last week. Yeah. But what I get my like biggest sense of accomplishment is like seeing this thing grow.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what like motivates me and like gets me up. It's like, and like you can grow in terms of client and headcount, revenue, like however you want to
Yeah,
measure
that's
it. But, like in the end, like it's just being able to kind of control your own destiny. And I think that's what the culture we're trying to build here is,
Yeah.
that like you should be able to, like if we picked you right and we built this company right, like you should be able to control your own destiny here and still figure out how to contribute value to what
Yep.
we're doing, right? So
And I think I'll even take that a little step further, because I think even controlling your own destiny to me means like you may outgrow us at some point, and that's cool. I'm okay with that. Like some people want to hoard talent, but like I mean, if you're a good, person and you're really good at your job and you're like a rock star, like you should be able to spread those wings. I don't want to hold you back. So I do think, part of the culture is like at some point we know that this path isn't linear and it's not forever. It's not like a forever thing. Like back in the day when you're like, you get
work
into a
at this job for 30
you're gonna-
fucking
you're gonna
years.
like,
10 years.
what am I
get the
going to do?
Tiffany's watch after
am I
like
doing
30
with my
years of
40-year
service and
pension or
shit.
whatever?
Yeah. I mean, like my dad, like our dad is like, he worked like
Yeah.
at companies for a really long time. And, it's also a generational thing
Right,
now
right.
too, where look, it's people jump around between jobs because they got options
Just
now.
look at the NBA, man.
Yeah, no shit.
Contracts don't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, but everyone is like a free agent now,
Yeah.
basically,
Yep.
and like you've got a market for it now with like Upwork and Fiverr and all that. And look, I mean, I
Or
talked.
just even like when you're saying Uber to fill the gap. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And people want their time back.
Right.
Like, they don't want to sit like commute 45 minutes to a goddamn job they fucking hate, to work for a boss they hate, and then have to commute 45 minutes back to be pissed off all night and go to sleep and wake up and do it all over
Yep.
again, because I've definitely done that,
Yeah, same here.
and I think in this day and age, like you don't really have to deal with that anymore if you don't want to, so
It's if you don't want to, right? There's a lot of people out there complaining that they still have to do it, but it's
and that's what I think the culture we're trying to build here is. Like I've always said, like I always joke around, we're kind of like a band of misfits, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like we're like, fuck this, we don't want to do like the normal thing, we want to do our own thing. And like I think this is almost like a framework that we've built for people to like grow within. Now, I don't know what happens when we get to 20, 30, 40,
Right.
50 headcount. Like, does this go away? I don't know, right? But we'll get there when we get there, and the culture is definitely going to shift and change.
yeah.
But-
I mean, I think one of our clients said it best. Like when you bring somebody in, like now they're part of that DNA.
You
And
know that somebody's gonna change the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So like as we grow, whatever, 20, 30, 50, who knows, it might only be 5 more people, but it's going to tweak and change ever so often. It's a ripple butterfly effect type deal. Does anybody else got anything on culture?
No, it was good. I think it was a good discussion, and it's a weird thing in today's day and age. I don't know, like if you worked 10 years ago or 15 years ago in just like a regular corporate environment or even a startup, even startup culture is different.
Way different,
totally different from today. I mean, it's almost like pre-Series A, you've got to have like a kombucha tap, like all that kind of shit in your office to get talent.
We're not in that realm, man.
Come on.
We're not at that pace, man. We're not at that pace. We have a coffee machine.
I don't like
we have a
kombucha
coffee
anyways.
machine in the office.
Yes, that's about as hipster as we'll get.
That all of us buy.
We
the coffee
pitch in
for.
and supply the coffee.
Yeah.
No, that actually that's a cool thing. Let's I know we're gonna end up here shortly, but let's talk about that's how much right there shows that we like believe in, like everybody is buying into the Kool-Aid. Not like we're a cult, but like right now the company we're very young and we're still very much in some ways startup mode, right? Especially when it comes to like budgets and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're making each dollar and each quarter count. So we bought a coffee machine, the company bought it, and then now everybody kind of pitches in and buys coffee for it without no one asked that.
Yeah.
It just happened. And I'm not saying that, we want you guys to do that forever, but it's just really cool that you guys aren't, you're like, whatever, like we want good coffee. We're not going to drink that crap that's out in the front, but yeah, just small things like that just shows that you guys are, fully bought in, which is cool.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, it's like those dude, like you want to build a good company culture, like hire people who don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't steal.
Yeah. And people you like and that like
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Hopefully you like people who don't lie.
I don't know. No. Cool. Well, I guess we'll end it on that. So that was Roundtable number 2.
Yep.
That was awesome. We're gonna keep doing this hopefully every month, and hopefully we'll keep adding faces to the podcast. If not, it'll just be me and Andrew and Oz or whoever's available. If you guys like what you're hearing, don't forget to rate, subscribe, tell a friend about the Run With Tobe podcast. If you have any questions, you can email us info@tobeagency.co, and we will see you on the next one.